Hello everyone and welcome back to another Too Good for Theaters video here. Today we're going to be talking about the Patriots 15-10 loss against the Miami Dolphins in excruciating fashion. So let's get right into this breakdown. So the Patriots do end up losing this game here by a total of 15-10 and some timely mistakes not only by the Patriots players in terms of penalty yardage and mental lapses, but honestly some mental lapses from this coaching staff I felt like really gifted Miami a win here today. And I'm going to be breaking down a couple of instances to start off this in particular. And I wanted to start off right with the 2-minute offense. Patriots get the ball back, up 7-3 at this point, with around 1:20 left in the first half. They ran the ball for 7 yards, which I liked very much. Miami is willing to just let the clock drain here. And instead of just taking what you have and going into the second half up 7-3, Alex Van Pelt makes the great decision to throw the ball twice in a row, halting the clock, not letting Miami use any of their timeouts. And then lo and behold, Bryce Behringer has his worst punt of the season most likely, and Miami actually ends up taking the ball over around your own 40-yard line, and they're able to get 3 easy points out of that. And as much as the Miami special teams struggle today, that's really just a mental lapse on this coaching staff. You have to understand your limitations on your offense. You're simply just not going to go down the field and get points in that scenario. Your offense just is not built like that. You're not going to have chunk plays. Miami is not going to let you use the sideline and use your timeouts. I mean, at that point, just go into the half and take what you got. That's literally what you want to have. You want to have the lead by a sizable margin at that point in this game where you can just simply run the ball and run the type of offense that you want to have. Instead, you allow them to get back into the game, quote unquote. I understand it's just simply a one-score game at that point either way, but a 7-6 game in this game is completely different from a 7-3 game. And that absolutely came back to bit you in the ass later in this game here, where if you're up 12-10, or say if that field goal never happens, and you're down 12-10 on that final drive, you don't need a touchdown. You need a field goal to take the lead. And it's just kind of those decisions like that, really that come back to bite your team in the ass. And really just a terrible job by this coaching staff, in particular, Alex Van Pelt, whoever is running the show down there from a play calling standpoint. You have to understand your team and the scenario that you're in. Your offense is too limited. They're not going to get points in that scenario. Just run the clock out and force Miami to use their timeouts at the very least. I mean, it's just really just, it's simple stuff. Like, you would think that this coaching staff understands its limitations. And they call the games like they do. But in that scenario, I don't know why they decided to feel all justified with trying to get more points on the board when you frankly just don't have the offense to do that. It was a stupid decision right there. And it's another instance that this coaching staff has struggled within the 2-minute warning on offense. You can go back to that Seattle game. You can go back to times even against the San Francisco 49ers of last week, where this coaching staff simply just has not been on the same page, and they have not made a decision of whether or not they're going to attempt to get points on the board through the air on 3 straight plays, or if you're just going to run the clock out. And to me, it was pretty clear you run the clock out. You're within your own 10-yard line. Just run the clock out. I don't know what that coaching staff was doing, and it really was just an absolute struggle from that point on the offensive coaching staff perspective. And the Patriots got very lucky from a special teams standpoint as well, with actually having 12 men on the field in a punt scenario, and that actually gifted Miami a first down. Luckily, on that drive, Christian Gonzalez makes an absolute great play of jumping in front of a slant route, but just another mental lapse by this coaching staff as well as the players. But use your timeouts. Do not gift Miami a free first down in that scenario. And frankly, I mean, it's kind of miscues like this where I understand Gerard Mayo is learning on the job. He said that he's going to be learning. There's going to be some screw-ups. But this is elementary stuff. Like, you cannot allow that to happen in the NFL. And if this continues with this coaching staff to have times where they're actually hurting their players on the field, and it's something that you would like to see this coaching staff learn from, but they're making the same mistakes on a multitude of different fronts from a week-to-week basis here. And I understand that they have a young, inexperienced coaching staff, But these are adjustments that have to take place if they want to have success in this league. So moving on to the offense here, and I just wanted to go ahead and start off with the offensive line having to change up the continuity again today. I believe the starting left tackle was Vidarian Lowe. It was good to see him return from injury. Then I believe the starting left guard today was actually Michael Jordan. They had two of their offensive linemen return from injuries here. Of course, with David Andrews down, your only available center on the roster is Nick Leverett. I believe your right guard was Layden Robinson once more, and your right tackle was Michael Onwenu. But another change along the offensive line. This is the fifth offensive combination that you've had to have on the offensive line throughout the injuries and just poor play, frankly. It is difficult to get continuity with the offensive linemen right now. And guys like City Cell still recovering were forced to play last week just due to your injury situation. And that really is a struggle for this offensive line. So I do want to give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt here. I'm sure this offensive line in particular has not played a lot together whatsoever. And frankly, today, I don't think that they were that terrible. I'm going to read out a stat that suggests otherwise, but I will defend them a little bit today. But the stat that I did want to throw out there today, I believe that Jacoby Brissett got pressured on 19 of his 38 dropbacks, and that is a 50% total. And to the offensive line credits, I do think that Jacoby Brissett at times today, frankly, just held on to the ball too long and has to get the ball out quicker, whether that's just going through his reads and progressions quicker or just simply throwing the ball away, getting out of the pocket and extending the play and just getting the play out of there. And to the offensive line credit, they only gave up 2 sacks today, and I do think that was due to the fact that Jacoby Brissett was able to kind of move around in the pocket and extend some plays, but they do have to get this pass protection under control. And a kind of a strength that I wanted to highlight along that Miami defense, Jaden Phillips was out, and I did say that the Patriots did have to take away Calais Campbell in this matchup because he has been terrorizing offensive lines so far this season, and I felt like the Patriots did a really nice job of that. And I'm not sure whether if that was just because Calais Campbell was on Michael Onwenu, or I do think that they did a pretty good job in scheming. Sometimes I did notice a couple of chips on Calais Campbell today, but they did a real nice job of taking away Miami's top pass rusher. So a nice job by the offensive coaching staff of not allowing Calais Campbell to take over this game. Unfortunately, the offense just frankly was not able to move the ball at all through the air. Jacoby Brissett actually finished the game 18 of 34 with 160 yards. I believe your leading receiver on the day was Pop Douglas with 6 receptions for 59 yards. It was good to see him get involved, and frankly, he made a lot of nice plays across the middle of the field today. That was an area that I felt like the Patriots could have attacked a little bit more through the passing attack, but I think that they did a pretty serviceable job of getting DeMario Douglas the ball today. I believe he had 9 targets on the game. You'd like to see those targets maybe go up 1 or 2, considering he probably is your most dynamic playmaking wide receiver. But Pop Douglas certainly had himself a productive day today at the office. And speaking about production, I felt like the offensive line did a real nice job today in the run game, where they were able to spring Ramondre Stevenson as well as Antonio Gibson up the field for some big runs. And I did notice a little bit of success early on, especially on that Ramondre run, where the Patriots were able to kind of run that power outside the zone scheme, and it sprung Ramondre Stevenson for a huge gain. I want to give a lot of credit to Kayshon Boutte as well for the blocking that he did on the outside, but really that was the most explosive play of the day for the New England Patriots, besides some of the deep passes hit on the final drive by Jacoby Brissett there. But speaking of the ground game for the Patriots today, that was by far their most productive area in this game of having some offensive success. Ramondre Stevenson was your leading rusher today, having a total of 12 carries for 89 yards and a touchdown, as well as Antonio Gibson had 6 carries for 52 yards. I believe most of that yardage was on a big 20-yard rush by Antonio Gibson. But once again, this offensive line does look rather stable in the rushing attack. However, I do think that there was just some offensive penalties that really killed this Patriots offense and did not allow them to kind of play ahead in the sticks. Anytime you have penalties like that, this offense frankly just doesn't have the firepower to overcome them. And I do think that this offensive coaching staff, from a play calling standpoint, could help out this offense a little more. In particular, I remember on the touchdown drive to Jalen Polk, where unfortunately it was called back. The Patriots were moving the football, and I did feel that Alex Van Pelt running an outside zone scheme that ultimately ended up in a penalty. I believe it was a holding call on Vidarian Lowe. Frankly, that should not be what you're doing in that scenario. Your offense has struggled to run these outside zone plays for the majority of the season thus far, and you just need to get yardage in that scenario and play ahead of the sticks to kind of keep your offense in that versatile mode where they can run or pass and do not make them one-dimensional. Luckily, the offense was able to overcome that penalty there, but really just confusing from a play-calling stance of not just kind of keeping the ball up the middle of the field where you're having a lot of your success through the run game so far. I understand wanting to keep that optionality open and to keep the defense honest, but frankly, just stick with what you're good at in that scenario and let the offense play to its strengths instead of trying to mix up and kind of confuse this defense from every now and again, especially on a drive where you need to get into the end zone. You have to play to your strengths. And this offense just simply can't afford to really not play to its strengths because they simply just don't have a lot of the talent to make that overcome that issue that they do have. And continuing to talk about that drive that ultimately did end up falling short there when the Patriots needed a touchdown drive to take the lead, I do think that they had a lot of success working across the middle of the field. I believe Pop Douglas on that drive alone had 2 big catches in the open field there. And unfortunately, the Miami defense really just did tighten up in the red zone there. And Jacoby Brissett actually made himself a very nice throw. I believe it was against the zone coverage where Jalen Polk actually ran what looked like a little bit of a double move to kind of settle down in the middle of the field. He actually blew by the zone defender, and unfortunately, he just wasn't able to fully get that second foot down in the end zone. And of course, with the end zone rules kind of differentiating from regular like sideline catches and stuff like that, you have to get both feet fully inbounds there, and that's really where the refs kind of deemed that he was not making a quote-unquote football move to make that touchdown grab. And it was really unfortunate because it was a great play called by the Patriots. Unfortunately, in the red zone, there's just so little room for error, and unfortunately, Jalen Polk was unable to get his entirety of his second foot down there. But it was a nice play by Jacoby Brissett and by Jalen Polk. Unfortunately, just really not a lot of room on the back end zone there, and it was nice to see that the Patriots had the chance to make an explosive play like that. It was a good double move. Unfortunately, they were just unable to properly execute that in the back of the end zone. And moving on to the actual final drive of the game there, a real nice job by Jacoby Brissett to kind of extend the play and hit Kayshon Boutte down the field for, I believe, which was around like a 20-ish yard gain there. But it did take a lot of time off the clock there. And you wonder if maybe the Patriots are better off in that scenario of just chucking that ball away and continue to try and work the sideline. I understand that Miami's not going to allow you to do that when you unfortunately don't have any timeouts. But just in future scenarios, that might be a different area. I understand that they picked up a huge gain there, but just working the sideline more, that might actually be a better recipe for success there. And Jacoby Brissett, that throw to Hunter Henry, it was a nice play, but you have to have better situational awareness there. You have to work toward the sideline, or you have to make sure that that ball gets into the end zone there, because that's exactly what Miami wants, to kind of keep the ball inbounds there. And the Patriots just had so little clock to manage with there. You have to have better situational awareness by Jacoby Brissett there. You are a veteran quarterback. You got to understand that. And that defense really kind of baited you into that throw, which kind of ultimately ended the game. And in general, you just simply weren't able to overcome your offensive limitations today. And frankly, this was a team that you should have beat. I felt like that you held yourself back with all the penalties that you had, and it certainly could have been more than 12 with a lot of them actually being declined. But this team has to play more discipline, especially from an offensive standpoint. You only have so much room for error, and whenever you commit a holding penalty, it basically puts an end to the drive because your offense simply just doesn't have the firepower to make up for negative plays at this standpoint. And it's something that's really carried over from last season, even to the year before that, these past 3 seasons. When you have such limited talent, you have to execute perfect, and you don't have any really room for error from an offensive standpoint to keep these drives alive. And it's going to be up to this offensive coaching staff to scheme open better plays or maybe some explosive plays today. I felt like they did take some shots today. Unfortunately, they just did not go through. But if this continues here, you're going to have to put in Drake May, simply just for the fact that he will bring more explosive plays. You might lose some areas of commanding the huddle and maybe reading defenses from a short yardage standpoint, but Drake May can certainly make up for that with the explosive plays that he is capable of bringing, as well as his mobility in the pocket and potentially making some plays in the running game throughout that. But it's going to be up to this Patriots coaching staff when deciding to see if Drake May is ready or not. And until then, Jacoby Brissett kind of has to play that perfect game for this Patriots offense to have any chance of success. So moving over to the defensive side of the ball here, I frankly just feel bad for this defense. I mean, they basically have to consistently hold teams to under 20 points for this offense to even have a chance at winning these games. And they did that today. Unfortunately, I do think that some costly penalties really impacted this defense. And besides that fact, they really had a dominant day in my mind of really just kind of controlling this Miami offense. And I understand that Tyler Huntley's starting at your Miami quarterback there. So maybe they could have played a little bit of tighter man coverage and not allow some of those deeper zone plays to where Tyreek Hill kind of had those comebackers, or even some of those crossing routes to Jalen Waddle and even guys like Jonnu Smith. Yeah, say Jonnu Smith actually beat the Patriots today. That's really rough hearing that as a Patriots fan. But I think that the defense did a solid job. Christian Gonzalez did a pretty solid job in coverage. I believe just on those comeback routes. That's like kind of one of those unguardable routes if you are a corner. Because you have to play Tyreek Hill deep. There's no other way to put it. And when you have safety help over the top, it's just extremely difficult with his speed. You have to give up something in that matchup, and that's what the Patriots unfortunately gave up today. And Miami was able to take advantage of those comeback routes. But I do think that Christian Gonzalez played himself pretty solid defense on Tyreek Hill, as well as Jalen Waddle when he was matched up against Jalen Waddle. But I would say that this defense did a pretty solid job in the run game of not allowing Miami to kind of get to that outside zone. Miami oftentimes kind of did that pitch play out of that I formation or the strong formation that they did have some minor success with. And when Raheem Mostert entered the game, you could really see the fresh legs of how they were able to kind of push this pile against the Patriots' run defense. But I think that Devon Godchaux and Daniel Ekuale had themselves a really good day today. Daniel Ekuale actually had himself a sack as well as a tackle for loss. Anthony Jennings came back into this game and made an impact of kind of setting the edge through the running game. But unfortunately, Miami's offense just was able to make enough plays to beat this Patriots defense. And I really do think that the fatigue kind of settled in on that last drive. You saw how Miami was able to rush up the middle and get big chunks of yardage. I believe the rookie Wright had himself some big carries on that final drive there. And frankly, that was kind of what a game plan that I wanted the Patriots to pursue, kind of force Miami to run inside. And sometimes you just have to tip your hat. Especially in that last drive, I felt like Miami didn't have a ton of success running into the inside of this Patriots run defense. But I think on that final drive, the Patriots were really just fatigued, and Miami kind of just stuck with it, and they were able to beat the Patriots by running on the inside as well as getting to the outside. So sometimes you do have to tip your cap, but I think that the Patriots did a good job of executing that game plan and forcing Miami to run to the inside. Unfortunately, they just beat you today with it, and I think it was more so just on that final drive. I think ultimately on the day, the game plan had a very successful outcome. However, just the fatigue kind of caught up with them, and especially that penalty. I don't want to throw a player under the bus, but Christian Ellis, that was such a boneheaded penalty. That was such a dumb-ass play. Not only are you lined up on the wrong side of the field and not guarding the area that you're supposed to, once you get over to that spot, you just commit a stupid-ass penalty, a pass interference penalty, on a play that, quote-unquote, really wouldn't have mattered. At that point, even if, I believe it was Mostert, catches that slant, you wrap him up, you're at like a 4th and 5 around the midfield. They're either going to be punting it, or that's going to be in a very aggressive 4th down call there. And, I mean, just by giving them more yards and extra time on the field. They are giving them that first down. Just an absolute terrible penalty there from Christian Ellis. And that was really a backbreaker on this team. I remember I was losing my mind after that penalty flag was thrown just because of Christian Ellis. That's a play you cannot make. That is a mental mistake on a multitude of fronts. First off, you were lined up in the wrong spot, and then you commit just a stupid-ass penalty on a play that really would not have mattered that much. I mean, it was just such a bad play. And that defense, I felt like that defense really got deflated from that play alone. But on the day, I feel like the Patriots defense, they obviously did enough to win this game. If the offense does manage to have even like a remote success on the day, they win this game. And I do think that the Patriots executed their game plan today from a defensive standpoint. A lot of their players did play rather well. However, just untimely penalties, whether that's Keon White roughing the passers, like I said before, Christian Ellis, terrible pass interference call, and just honestly just mental mistakes from this defense, really costly. But I will say I do think that the communication on the back end of this defense was very successful today, especially when you're missing guys like Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers. Jalen Hawkins really filled in that role, played quite well. Del Pettis did a serviceable job in his role covering up for both your starting safeties being out in this game. And once again, I have to reiterate, the Patriots' inability to get pressure has really just kind of taxed this secondary. I mean, they only came up with 2 sacks on the day. Daniel Quale as well as Anthony Jennings both had half a sack. And congratulations to the practice squad call-up in the defensive tackle, that being Roy. I'm not familiar with his first name, but he did get himself a sack today. And that was more so a coverage sack as well. But the Patriots' inability to get pressure really has made this secondary work. And it's frankly why they're playing a lot more zone coverage than they are in man. So I think that DeMarcus Covington is going to have to start blitzing more. He just simply has to, because his secondary is not going to be able to live up to their expectations when they have to cover for so long. And this team is a team that should be playing man coverage. They have the corners to play man coverage, and they have the safeties to match up against tight ends as well as backs and to hold up on the defensive end in that secondary. But unfortunately, they're unable to play to their strengths just due to the fact that they cannot get pressure on the quarterback, and especially when guys like Keon White are making unfortunate penalties when they do get pressure on the quarterback, like roughing the passer and just stuff like that. It's really kind of hindering this defense's ability to play to their strengths. But ultimately on the day, you hold an NFL team to 15 points, you should be winning that game. And unfortunately, I think that the defense really did execute their game plan rather well. They just did make some unfortunate mental mistakes in terms from a penalty standpoint that ended up costing them and giving up more points than they actually should have. All right, everyone, this concludes my Week 5 breakdown of the Patriots versus Dolphins. Unfortunate L there for the New England Patriots. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and hopefully the Patriots are able to rebound in the upcoming weeks. This is a part of the schedule where they should be able to pick out some W's and have some favorable matchups, but frankly, this team might just not have the talent to compete this year, and it's going to be one of those rebuilding seasons. I'll see you all next time.